Lilith was the evil spawn, reject of, Adam's rejected wife of Adam.
Mm.
And her story has actually a complete connection to the original people that were here before God and, his posse started creating humans and cloning people.
Welcome to Firestar TV. I'm Mama C. Today I'm joined by Esaia Mystic, a spiritual life coach, not just a life coach, a spiritual life coach. She's from New Orleans and she's joining us today to give us a bit of spiritual insight, which we all need in these hard times. Welcome, Esaia.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us.
How are
So,
you?
I'm good. I'm good. So we discovered you on YouTube. Our five-star CEO Zilla was creating a new song about Yahweh. So we were looking into Avatar and Awa, and that's how we came across your channel. How did your spiritual consciousness journey start?
So I was born. I was born into this world from my mom was very, very, very spiritual. So when I came into this world, I was already, you know, um, she was raising me to have a very spiritual awareness of life. And my mom and my mom's side of the family, they were Baptists, Baptist Christians. I don't know if that's the same thing, but they were Baptists and they went to church every Sunday. My grandfather was a pastor in the South. He was a very prominent figure, spiritual figure in the South, during Jim Crow and during, the era where, Black people really gravitated towards the church heavily. And he was very influential during his time. And so just being the granddaughter of, a pastor that made such a big impact on the South, we were like, my family was just, really spiritual. And we were in the religion of, you know, the Baptist church and, reading the Bible and things like that. But we were always, it was something a lot deeper than that. It was something a lot deeper than that. And I could always sense that um, in my grandfather and in my family. Especially, it was kind of like they lived by the Bible, but it was always a feeling of this is just a gateway or a portal. It's not the end all be all. So from my mom growing up in that environment, she eventually um, decided to branch out and learn some new things, go expand herself. And I think at some point in her life, after she had me, she was introduced to a school called IDMR. So IDMR was like I can't remember the words for each name, but that was the acronym for the school. That's what it was. It was like a school where people would come and learn about Yahweh, Yahshua, and Elohim. And I used to go there with my mom. Like that became our new church. And I used to go there with my mom like every Sunday. And I would be bored, but I would be there listening, because I'm a child. And I'm like, can we go now? But I would just be there listening, absorbing. And eventually it got to the point where that same institution started to become very religious. Like the spirituality was what we came for, but it started to get really religious.
Oh,
And I'm outside, so let me know if the cars
oh.
are like too loud. But the
Yeah, I
IDMR
understand
started to
that.
just become too religious. It started to become too closed in, you know. They would talk about Yahweh, Yahshua, Elohim, and these principles, and you know, preach. But then it was like a cutoff. You know, it was like a cutoff because essentially we were living in a society that's, you know, I guess what I feel like is the energy had to open up a little bit more. And the more um once you learn a little bit, it's like, okay, you can be taken to the next
So were they teaching
step.
you from the Bible at this
Yes, they were. They were
strictly from the
still
Bible?
reaching and teaching from the Bible. So yeah. So um that was pretty much my first introduction to um recognizing Yahweh as being um like Jesus is not Jesus, it's not Jesus, it's Yahweh, right? Like Jesus is not the truth. Like Jesus was a created, you know, person by people that we don't resonate with. So
So
that was my first introduction to it.
is it that there was no Jesus, or there was a Jesus but he just wasn't called Jesus?
It was we didn't recognize that was the beginning of me not recognizing Jesus as a true name, basically, like a true um like the difference between Christianity and Jesus and Yahweh. Like basically that was the beginning of me having some kind of differentiation between the two, because I know a lot of people still merge them together, you know, merge the two uh names together, because you know um the Bible now has pretty much erased the other name and put, you know, Jesus in there. So that was the beginning of that.
So is Yeshua and Yahweh different? They're different people or different entities?
Yes, you said Jesus and Yahweh are different.
Yeshua and Yahweh,
So
or Yeshua.
Yahshua and Yahweh, from my understanding of the source, the energy source, Yahshua is a spirit, a spirit, and Yahweh is a source. So I actually went through my own journey in really delving deeper and understanding the truth between both of both of those names, and really just everything in general, because I got to a point after I grew up and I went out on my own into my own, you know, living life. um I started to question everything. I started to question, well, you know, if Yahweh is the real name of, you know, this source, you know, that we talk about in the Bible, and Yahshua is the real name, and, you know, Elohim, I just had more questions. I was like, I need to know more. You know, my mom brought me up to believe in this, but now I need to believe it for myself. Now I need to understand it better for myself, instead of just, you know, going along with something because that's the way I was raised to believe and to think. So from me having more questions, um, I ultimately was starting to receive more answers. Um, I remember one day when I was, wasn't too long ago, actually. I think it was like maybe 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I was saying to myself, I was like, I need to I want to know what's the truth. Like, that was just really what it is. Like, I just need to know what's the truth, about my existence. I guess you could say it was like kind of a purpose, like what's my purpose question, but it was a lot deeper than that. And I had a real desire to understand better. And then it was like, I don't think it was even a day or two after that. Um, that's when I came across, as I was telling you, I came across Kurameo's page. And when I started to watch his videos, I was already aware that as as a Black person in America, I'm actually an indigenous being. That was something that, a message that came to me after I graduated college. Um, because I was very, very into like the Kemetic studies and, learning about ancient Egypt and learning about, that area, Africa, that area. And I was connecting heavily there because of the principles and um, the teachings. But again, I ended up attracting the knowledge that a majority of my ancestors came from this land. So then that had me asking more questions. So again, that led me to Kurameo's page. And when I got to Kurameo's page, I was like, wow, okay, this is a lot of detail, like historical details, historical information, historical knowledge, where before it was just a hunch. Like before it was just my intuition, like, oh, I think this is the truth. So his page really like solidified the logistics and the information part of it. But as I went deeper, into some of his content, and he started talking about how the people would chant these chants, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, and then it would go deeper, and then he would be like, yeah, they're talking about this source that's called Yahweh. And I was like, right when I heard that, I had chills all run through up my spine, all through my hairs, my arms. And I was like, okay, there's more. Here's what I've been asking for. So
Do you remember what video that was that you saw? Which video that was?
I don't remember the exact video. I've
No.
binged on a few of his videos. So
Yeah. Did you see the one about Thoth?
hmm.
Did you see the one about Thoth?
No, I actually haven't gotten to that video yet. But just in general, it was just one of his videos because he has a lot of videos and they're very long. So
I think it
um
was because of that video about Thoth. That was the whole spiral that I started with. The whole name of Jesus was also from Kurameo's video as well.
really, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was like, whoa, like, and then that was it down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, okay. I need to watch that video next then. Um, but
Why do
yeah,
you
that
believe
was
that? Why do you believe that although being used 7,000 times in the Old Testament, that the translation was taken out or replaced?
what do I think about
The name
the
being
translation?
replaced, yeah, being replaced in the Bible. Do you think there's any significance to that?
I think there's a lot of significance to that. I think that that's like that's a big chunk of the puzzle. I think a lot of it wasn't just the name, that got taken out of the Bible, but it was a lot of things that were manipulated from the text by beings that came here to Earth to take over. And for them to take over, they had to create their own paradigm, their own matrix for people to feed into and give their energy to. So I definitely think that that was, you know, intentional, and it was intentional to basically destroy the earth, if I'm gonna be blunt.
Yeah.
um, I believe that there are beings that came here to this realm during these times that, you know, you're speaking of, and they had intentions on, you know, pretty much taking over and taking away the spirit of this place, you know. But I also believe that they're not that powerful and they can't do something like that. There's no way. And I also believe that karma is real. So I'm speaking about this, but it's really just a happening that has definitely taken place. And um, yeah, the beings that have manipulated the text did so purposefully so that we can't get in touch with our source. So Kuramel talks a lot about, you know, bringing us back to the fact that we're indigenous, ancient indigenous beings, right? Um, and I like to also bring to the forefront of people's awareness that there is a primordial spirit, there's a primordial energy that lives here. And this spirit, this great spirit, was once and still is acknowledged by Yahweh. And I do think that the people who are using this term or this name now have also construed the the truth of what this name represents. And you know, like I think it's like the Jews and there's just religions all over the place, you know, where they've taken these names um, to reference and bring the energy back to uh, a foreign god, if that makes sense. It does make sense, actually.
Yeah.
They're taking, basically taking the energy of these names and diverting it back to these foreign gods. So
So
in
do
my
you think
video
that?
that you,
Oh yeah,
oh, go ahead.
sorry. So do you think that even by just changing the Y's to the J's, um, even that can cause this diversion of energy to these other entities that are diverting worship? Do you think it can even happen just
Yes,
from the J and the
definitely.
Y?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think so. You know, when a lot of people think that, oh, it's just a name, what's the point, you know?
But also, if you mix that in with the fact that they're also on worshipping on a Sunday instead of the Sabbath, do you think that also is significant in this
Yes.
diversion?
Yes, the day of the month, the day of the week, you know, they're all ruled by different influences. And Sunday, of course, is the soul day, is the day of, they say that it's the day of the sun, but the sun just represents the soul. So when you are, um, you know, giving worship to, you know, energies, different entities, and it's not really connected to you at all, um, it is a type of ritual that you're taking place in
This
that,
is Yeah, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people move out of the church. Like you said at the beginning, you get to a point where, especially in this country, it's like the church is the be all and end all, and that's the end point, and that's it. And you ask questions, and you're kind of shunned. So when I started
mm-hmm,
asking questions about this to my pastors and elders about the Sabbath and the Sundays and the changing in the Catholic Church, again, it was like blocked with a lot of answers. So having people like you and Kurumio giving us this information, it is really helpful to people who are lost on this journey.
yeah, definitely. I always say when there when there's an illusion at play, um, anytime you have questions because you want answers, um, to keep the illusion up, you have to shun anything, that brings you back to earth, um so that kind of balance between worlds, the spiritual world should always balance or be reflected in our physical reality. And anytime you have spirituality not wanting to uh synchronize with the physical reality we're living in, so like you're saying, like, I'm asking questions and you don't want to answer them, or you're getting frustrated, or you're getting angry, or you're doing that narcissistic thing where you just, what is it, gaslight me and say that I'm turning into a devil because I want to do this or I want to do that. That's that's the spirit trying to keep you from really tapping into your true source.
The spirit,
So,
what spirit? An evil spirit, the devil, what kind of spirit?
well, there are different entities that live here that, like I said, um, so when these beings came here, these foreign beings, of war and, you know, massacre and just all kinds of craziness, um, I do believe that there is, so when I say, when you're giving energy to a god or a deity or a force, this is a real entity that can take over certain vessels, like have a say in how you operate here in this lifetime. We all have spiritual guides. We all have spiritual, ancestors, beings that are watching over us, guardian angels. But there are also, if you are, um, you know, I would say spiritually, if you have some spiritual, just weak in that area of your spirituality, there are entities then that can latch onto you and control your vessel. And I definitely believe that this is how certain things were able to just take place through certain beings. Like, I think racism wasn't just, oh, we just decided to hate black people today. um I definitely think that there was a higher force at play, because all of a sudden now, uh there's white people everywhere, and there we're not experiencing the same thing that we once were at a certain period of time, because there was a different spiritual energy at play. Does that, so
Mm.
you following what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I love it. I love it. This is so juicy. How did this all lead you into spiritual life coaching then? And what's the difference between a normal life coach and a spiritual life coach?
So spiritual life coaching is intentionally taking you beyond what you are used to, or what you are already um ascribed to as normal. Spiritual life coaching is something that gets you in tune with the supernatural forces of life versus just the mundane, regular things that we go through in life. Spiritual life coaching is like, no, there's more that you can tap into spiritually that can give you certain awarenesses and consciousness is that a word, um but it can give you a broader and more connected
So
understanding of
do
who
you
you
mean like
are.
crystals and like tarot cards? Is it those sort of things? Is it like an external thing, or is it just an internal something that you connect to? Because
So
obviously coming
crystal
from Christian background, like like you said, when you speak to people in the church, they're like, it's it's all devil worship. You can't tap into anything spiritual and talk about it in the church without it being demonized. So were some of these things demonized on purpose to stop us from accessing them, or is there a real danger to accessing some of these things?
Oh, definitely. Well, there's not a real danger to accessing these things, but it's definitely been scrutinized, and it's really just a fear. It's a code of fear that we've carried in our genetics. It's I would say it's encouraged for you to keep that code going to church. So basically, like, when a certain family member or a certain ancestor goes through something, like being demonized for being who they are, like, a lot our ancestors were fully 100% connected to the earth. Earth was it. Earth was our source. And in my video, I also connect understanding Yahweh as a source that comes from the earth, and it brings us life, and that's why it was so easy for me to connect Yahweh with Awa, because this force has also been very you know masculine, like made into this masculine force, masculine energy, when it's really a feminine being. It's really a feminine being. And that was a big part of why we did end up leaving IDMR, because though in the churches and things, we're preaching and preaching and preaching, but this preaching has always been, and the energy has always been towards this man in the sky. And it's like, once you tie it to the actual place that you live on, this is a big part of why they don't talk about Earth in astrology. We talk about every single other planet in astrology, but Earth all of a sudden doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it gets very little, like very little play, or very little attention. So why is it when we look up our birth charts that Earth is just nowhere to be found and every other planet is more important, even though we live here? That's a question. That's a real question that needs an answer. So the truth of the matter is, connecting to the earth is something that if you even have the audacity to do at one point in time, it was just obvious. We just gonna murk you. We just gonna get rid of you. Your species is demonic. Your species is, we want to get rid of these earth beings because they have too much power. They have too much, they're a threat. Basically, they're a threat to what we are coming here attempting to do. And even now, to this day, when you are in the church and you are connecting back to the earth, you are connecting to the stone beings of the earth, because crystals, they're living entities. They're living beings that carry information that we can connect with and store memories into, and also vice versa. So when all of this, like, angst against dabbling into these things, it's all connected to wanting to keep your connection to the earth and your source out of the picture. We don't want you to do that, because doing that would unlock a power that we're not trying to deal with.
Yeah.
We can't deal with that. So yeah, that definitely was a huge part of why I am taking on the role of being a spiritual life coach now, because growing up, having the perception that I have and having the insights that I have and asking the questions that I asked, it was way too many people, looking at me like I was crazy, not understanding anything I was talking about, telling me that I was delusional because this isn't how things happen. It was just a lot of spiritual experiences I was having. I was starting to see, starships in the sky. I was starting to see actual spirits, like, watching me in my sleep, which wasn't a scary experience, to be honest. Most people are extremely scared when they even think about, the spiritual realm, and we can blame horror movies for that. But the truth is, connecting to these beings gives us a protection. It gives us a connection, and it gives us kind of like a shield, to live here untouched, untethered, and in whatever way we want to, essentially. So that experience of meeting so much resistance of people, oh, I saw a satellite, I mean, not I saw a satellite, I saw a starship in the sky, and people are like, oh, that was just a satellite, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, these people are, there is a disruption that needs to happen. And so spiritual life coach is a way for people to understand what I'm doing, you know, on a basic level, like, oh, she's a spiritual life coach, because it's simple, it's easy. Um, but really, I want people to resurrect from this slumber, or even if they have the smallest desire to transform, I want to be able to help people in doing that, and knowing that, hey, there is a lot more to this life, to this world, that if you tune into, you know, the churches or the media or the systems, they're going to beat it out of you. They're going to beat it out of you. They're going to make you feel like it's not real. It doesn't exist.
So when you think about the narrative of Jesus being the savior of the world that's been fed to black people and white people all around the world, what do you think about that in terms of now what you're doing? Are you saying that that's not the case?
I think that they've taken a story and they've twisted it to benefit them and put people in a state of fear, because Yahshua is, like I said, is a spirit. Yahweh literally means breath. Like, if we were to translate it literally, it means to breathe. And when we breathe, our breath is our spirit. It's literally our spirit, or signaling that our spirit is living, present, and it's encompassing our body. So when the breath leaves, our spirit leaves, period. And when we're present, we're breathing. This is life. And the more we breathe, the more we can actually embody and encompass our spiritual aura, our orenda, our aura, whatever people want to call it. It's who we are. And when we breathe, we're getting more in sync with the truth of who we are. Yahshua is representing the fire of that spirit. So the fire of that spirit would be the character of someone who is in complete and total and like a complete alignment with that spirit, that the spirit that they are. Yahshua is the fire of that spirit. So fire represents action and what our character, who we are and what we do, basically, our personality. Like, yes, we have a spirit, but once our spirit gets to moving and acting and being, then that takes on a light, takes on a specific light. So Yahshua is talking about the spirit that's in tune with the source. So Yahshua is just the spirit that comes from Yahweh, right? And when they're talking about, Jesus saved the world, really, well, in the original text, they talk about how Yahshua comes in and gets it done. Basically, that's my synopsis of this spirit. Basically, the spirit that the matrix, the system, these alien beings, they don't want the indigenous or primordial they don't want beings here in general to tap into that spirit, because if 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 it were to happen, their whole thing, or their whole, I mean, it would just be over with. They can't live here anymore. They have to go back where they came from, which is happening already now, to some degree. But this is essentially what the original text, or the original, like, explanation of this is talking about. And Jesus, it's Jesus saving the world. It's just a way for them, their narcissistic, whatever they, crazy psychopathic way, for them to get people to be in servitude to this fictitious being, so that's how I feel about that.
And in a couple of your videos, you've talked about the Eve gene. Do you think that's a gene that all women have, or is it just a few, a select few?
The Eve gene. So the Eve gene is essentially the mitochondrial DNA of women. And that DNA can be activated no matter who you are. It can be activated. So I do teach that there is a primordial race. There is an original bloodline when it comes to identifying physically and practically, people on earth. There is a primordial bloodline, and that primordial bloodline is found in the ancient people of this earth, which is, you and I. If you did,
and do you think that was Adam and Eve as well? Do you think Adam and Eve were the first beings?
No, Adam and Eve were not the first beings of this planet. Adam and Eve were humanoids. That's what I'd like to call them. They were created by their God, and this is what they, what they tell you in the Bible.
Is that Yahweh, or would you say that was one of the Anunnaki?
Definitely the Anunnaki. So this is why I started talking about Lilith a lot in my on my YouTube page, because Lilith is an aspect to the Bible that literally got, a lot of it cut out, demonized, distorted. Lilith was the evil spawn, reject of, Adam's rejected wife of Adam. And her story has actually a complete connection to the original people that were here before God and, his posse started creating humans and cloning people. So I haven't really got into the, cloning aspect of things on my channel, but this is essentially the beginning of the cloning, is Adam and Eve. And aside from Adam and Eve, there was a primordial people who are already here. So when we talk about clones, I usually reference, people who have been cloned to, races and phenotypes that have very limited genetic spectrum. So certain people can have babies and their babies come out looking all kind of ways. It is, their genetics are varied. They have an wide variation of genes, because they come from a bloodline that emanated from the original people of the earth. Whereas people who are of a clone, humanoid descent, tend to have less variations in their genetics. So, you know, um, Asians, not all Asians, but Asians, um, certain kinds of Dravidians, certain kinds of uh, Africans, you know, where they all look the same. Meaning, like, this is just how they look. They have this repetitive gene pattern.
Hmm.
Um, and this is where they start to confuse people with ancestry.com, especially Black people who are dying and just really wanting to have some kind of culture in ancestry. Um, is, we take these ancestry.com tests, and then we get traced back to all over the world, when it's like they actually got their genes from us.
Right. So who do you think the first created beings were? Who do you think the first created beings were then on the earth?
Afro-Indigenous beings. That's a fact.
And they
There's, I
followed
mean,
through the Egyptian, is that the Egyptian history you would say? Like, where is that document?
so I'm glad you're asking this, because this is something that a lot of people also haven't tied together, because it seems like there's like a war on where Black people came from. We came from Africa, and it's like, we really just came from the earth, and that's just what it is. And so before there was, all of this confusion and all of this split, you know, these splits even in the earth, before the earth split into all of these different areas and pieces, there were four primordial houses. So this is a wisdom that my mom shared with me, because my mom is a psychic. She's an oracle, and she's been on this journey, longer than me. She, like I said, she brought me into this, and she had a vision, um, I believe it was in her dreams, that there were four primordial houses initially, that ruled all the original beings of this earth. And each house was named after uh my mom's sisters. So my mom has four sisters, and when my grandmother passed away, my mom had this very deep spiritual experience during her passing, um because she could literally feel, everything my grandmother was feeling during her transition. So she had a really deep spiritual experience, and she told me that these four primordial houses were named the house. So the first house was the house of Gene, which was in reference to my grandmother. The second house was the house of Ra, which was in reference to one of my aunts. The third house was the house of Terra, which is another one of my aunts. And then the fourth house is the house of John. So I'm going to explain to you what these houses are, outside of how they relate to my family. um, so the house of Ra is the primordial house that carried, and I also like to call it the house of fire, represents the fire element. But the house of Ra is where all of the ancient Egypt, ancient Kemetic, ancient Nubia, ancient Kush, all of these principles that we know now were derived from. And this was one of the primordial houses. So we are relative to those, that area of things. It's not like a separation, like, oh, you know we're not from the Egypt anymore, we're just, from here. It's like, it's way more than that. We were all connected at one point. So the house of Ra is, rules over that field of, ancient Kemet, Egypt. The thing about that is, because the principles have been kept alive, the fire principles, we've we took all of it and we just said this is just what it is and it ain't nothing else. But there's more, you know? So the house of John is um derives from, so of course Ra meaning sun, fire, and the house of John coming from the Injans. So the Injans are who ruled over pretty much all of the Americas, the North America, South, Central, South areas. And the House of John is, if you look at the index for the last names that are most popular among Indigenous Americans in the United States and in the Americas, you'll find that Johnson is the most popular last name. So I'm like, okay, Johnson is the most popular last name. Why? So when this land was first, the beings, other alien beings first came to this area, they knew that we weren't Indians, right? But yet they were calling us Injans. They were calling us Injans specifically because for a purpose, because we were the Johns. And that name goes back very deeply. Still some research that I have to do on that name, but it's a very powerful name, and it's a very powerful name, and it's a derivative of a Hebrew name, right? Ancient Hebrew name, which is where majority of the Hebrew texts and the original Hebrew things are found, like in the mounds and all over the place where it just hasn't been explored or discovered. Specifically, when I did my genealogy, it linked me back to the mound builders of America, which is the energy of the Injans. So moving on to the next house is the house of Terra. So Terra is a name for Earth and living on Earth. But there are many Earths. There are many places in the universe that are like Earth. And there's even more to this Earth aside from what they show us on the map. So the rest of it is cut off by ice for a reason. But the House of Terra rules the earth element. So the previous one, the House of John, is the air element, and it all has a resonance. And this is a lot of information. I know I have way more
Oh, don't worry, I'm like
information to
soaking it all
this.
up. Yeah. I was thinking, is it earth, fire, air, and water, the four elements when you said that?
Yes. So there's a lot more explanation to this in the book, in my upcoming book, The Great Woman Resurrected. But so the House of Terra is the earth element, and it is the house of basically the earths, every earth, every earth that exists, and this earth. So the entire earth, and people who resonate with the earth, the protectors of the trees, the animals, the plants, the connection to the earth was this house's ruler. And then the last house is the house of Gene, and this rules the primordial waters. So the house of Gene is responsible for all of the genes, or I would say the large variety of genes that is birthed
Is that why it's
or
called a
was
gene
birthed
pool?
onto this planet.
Is that why it's called a gene pool?
Yeah, gene. That word is very powerful, and it's used etymologically in so many different words, genius, genie, indigenous, um, genealogy. Like, there's so many ways that word is used, but I don't think people tie two and two together. So basically, whenever that word is being used, they're talking about the primordial genes, the primordial waters of this planet. And we live on water. We don't live, technically, we don't live solely on earth. Earth lives on water. So the house of Gene kind of like carries every single of all of the other houses. And um Jean, Deidre Jean was my grandmother's name. So this is where my mom got, these connections from. And um my grandmother named all her daughters with the last name L. So my mom was John L. Her sister was Tara L. And her other sister was Rasha L. Um, and of course they didn't pronounce it like that because we lived in the South. But this was this was the basically the beginning of me really taking on the understanding of how spiritual this understanding of who we are is. It's not just about, you know, claiming your indigenous rights, or, having a nationality and having a place to call, or land to have your stake in, but it's about identifying yourself in a much more spiritual and soulful way that's connected so deeply to life that any other being or entity that's, that's weak can't live in your in your surroundings, in your environment, in your threshold. And I do think that just by having people in a certain spiritual state and being ascribed to certain spiritualities that have a cutoff to that connection definitely keeps people in states of struggle, fear, powerlessness, feeling like they have to go march and do all of these things that are just unnecessary when you have that spiritual grounding
Do you still
or
use the
connection.
Bible as your? Do you still use the Bible, or how literally do you take the text?
So my grandfather gave me a pink Bible before he passed away, and I've kept it. I still have it. And I honestly never really go in it to read it. So I don't read the Bible uh at all or often. But if I do come across or have a reason to go in there and look and read something, um, then I will. But normally, when I come across different things, like even these names that I'm like bringing up to you, like I know that there's an area in the Bible where they talk about John, like they use that name. And so I would, like, whenever I find, things to look deeper into, like clues, like, oh, here's a clue, then I'll go to the Bible and, do some decoding and recoding, because I know that. Who let you out? Oh gosh, my daughter's outside. Here, go back
No.
there. Go ahead. But yeah, I know that there's more to it, and that would kind of be the only reason I'll go into the Bible, is to like
Where
decode
would you?
something.
Where would you say a good source for people who are coming out of this sort of Christianity, the Bible indoctrination? Where do you think they should go if they're looking for texts to give them insight?
I think that they need to first and foremost connect with their spirit, because if you try to leave somewhere else looking for something else, you'll get more information, but the idea is to connect to your own spirit first, and then ask for answers, and then ask for direction, versus just I need to talk to someone. I need to read this book. I need to read that book. Really connect to yourself. This is why breathing techniques and breathing practices and going out into nature and just alone being alone in general, really sitting with yourself and feeling what it is that you feel and letting yourself be guided to with the thoughts that you think and feeling that fire that I talked about, when you get lit up, like I told you when I was watching one of Caramel's videos and I was listening in and, I started hearing more about what he was saying, and how the indigenous people used to chant this name, Yahweh, but it was, different, like Yahweh or Hewa, and it was more. I had a whole like I had
I
chills, like
know.
I had
Yeah.
like I can feel my soul just shoot
Light up.
through my entire nervous system. And that's what you want to follow. That's what you want to um let guide you, because that's what's going to bring you, closer to those answers that you're looking for.
And you mentioned before about how your hair is an antenna. So do you think maybe potentially weaves and wigs and these things might be blocking people's natural spiritual antenna if they're relaxing their
I
hair, etc.?
definitely think that um weaves and wigs and dyeing your hair, over dyeing it, over processing your hairs. A lot of the things, and I was going to make another video on this too, because I felt called to speak on it further. But even, cutting your hair in certain ways comes from literally people trying to enslave indigenous beings. In ancient Asia, when one of the war beings over there came in and took over, they had everybody cut their hair into bangs so that their third eye was blocked and they wouldn't be able to perceive, and see as uh better as they would without it. There was a research article done on indigenous people of America who had, their hair. Of course, they don't ever cut their hair. They let it grow, and then that's just it. So they did a research study on indigenous men who were forced into the army to go to war, and how when they were going through their practices and like training, that they were more likely to sense when an invader was coming uh to ambush them, and they would sense it and they would get away, or just somehow be averted from that attack, um because they could sense it. They were more acute. They were more aware. Their reflexes were on point. And then, of course, when you go into the army, you have to cut your hair. As soon as they cut their hair, they weren't um, as alert. They didn't sense things as um, better, when they did have their hair. So hair is it is your connection to God, is your connection to your spirituality. Um, and how you love and honor your hair definitely will allow you to be a lot more perceptive, intuitive, and connected. um I do believe that to be true. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be connected if you have a weave in your head or whatever, but I am saying that that's just, you can access so much more, because the reality is we majority of people here on this planet are only using a certain percentage of their brain. If I sit here and tell somebody, yeah, I just disappeared that cloud with my finger, or I just uh went to the lake and moved some of the water in the lake to help it flow some more, they're gonna be looking at me like,
Yeah, because you actually talk a lot about supernatural powers on your
Yeah, because
videos.
they're real. They're very real. And in the ancient world and some of the areas of the world where that information was preserved, like, ancient Asia, um, even ancient India and some parts of, I believe, Africa, where a lot of that information and practice was preserved, you know, they they're obviously, able to tap into something that is very supernatural, people living 500 years or longer in the mountains, just, you know, um, coming out of the mountains. I think that was with the 1950s. My yoga teacher, and detox, herbalist, he's an elder, showed me this article when I was working with him a few years ago. And yeah, it was like this. I don't know if it's 500 years, but it was at least 300-year-old man in the came out of the mountains into the world, and people are just like, you can live that long?
So,
What? So I definitely think that they're also um messing with our capacity to live long, like a long life. I definitely also believe that as well, because it is happening, but don't expect to see it on the news, don't expect to see it on YouTube or any of these social media systems that are not being censored by people who are in your favor. They're censoring information, and they want you to pay attention to, the love and hip hop and the stuff that is fun, ha ha he he. Great. I'm all about having a good laugh, but I also value truth. So I think that truth should be available to everybody who wants to know it. So definitely don't just rely on, even well, if you come to my channel, you could, I guess, rely on them. But even on YouTube, they take down videos. They
so
will
have you
take
had
down
any of
video.
your videos taken down? Have you had any of your videos taken down?
I have not. Um, yeah, I think that I'm, I guess I don't want to say I think I'm immune to that, but I
Okay,
haven't
good.
had anything taken down because I'm very, I guess I'm not very brutal with what I'm saying. I'm just very loving and like, hey, if you want to learn more about this, I don't know. I don't think it'll happen to me, but yeah.
So, for our viewers watching, if you could give us like maybe 5 ways that we could start connecting to our spirit, like now in these sort of difficult times, what would you recommend?
5 ways to connect to your spiritual being. So, let's see. Well, one of the first ways would definitely be to take care of your body and connect back to the earth. Um, you need to you need to understand your health in relationship to the earth. A lot of people don't put their spirituality as being equal to their health and wellness, when they're they're one and the same. The rituals you partake in every single day, that's a ritual. Everything you do every single day is a habit. They call them habits that we do every single day. That's creating, not only creating our life, but it's also showing how connected we are to our spirit. So when we develop illnesses or things, chronic illnesses or whatever it is, it's because we have a habit, or we're doing this ritual every single day that's going against our spirit, and that's going against our connection to our spirit. So start adopting habits and rituals that connect you to your body, mind, spirit. Okay, one in the same. So drinking water, stop eating all that processed stuff. A lot of people think they're being healthy when they really just eating a bunch of processed stuff, like cut out the processed stuff. And if you don't know what process means, it means food that you buy in a box. Okay, if you're gonna buy something in a box, it needs to be minimally processed, and it needs to have the non-GMO, organic, local. It needs to be minimally processed. So, but yeah, cut out the processed stuff. Start connecting, eating farm farm foods. Start your own garden. Start connecting to plants. Start connecting to your body and the earth, and that is going to be your gateway to any other shifts, really. So that was one thing. What could be number two?
Yeah, that's pretty much all.
um,
That was about 10 things you gave us.
oh, that was 10 things?
No, no, no,
Okay.
no. You have no. That was number two.
Yeah, so definitely connect to your body. Um, the people that you're surrounding yourself with, start surrounding yourself with different people if they're not cohesive, or I would say feeding you in the ways that you need to be fed, because we all want to be a part of a family. We all want to be a part of our where we feel like we belong. So you definitely need to spend less time with people who are making you feel crazy or making you feel like, worthless or not not sane. Like, put yourself around people that you can connect with, intentionally. Find things to tune into, whether it be on social media or, just in general. Once you make the decision, the universe will just start to bring you those things anyway. So definitely just make the decision to have a different spiritual surrounding, because the people we surround ourselves, they're spirits too, so their spiritual energy will mesh and merge with yours. um Another thing, you know I think those are the things that really helped me on my journey. um and for everyone, is honestly, it's going to be different. But those two core things definitely. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. You've given us so much insight and yeah, so many different things to think about. And I've really, really enjoyed the interview. Thank you so much. What are your plans for the rest of 2021 then?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. A car passed.
What are your plans for the rest of 2021?
Oh, my plans. I have plans to start making music, um, come out with a couple of songs, at least one song, um, print the first copies of my book, The Great Woman Resurrected. Definitely grounding myself a little bit more. Um, Family, creating more family, creating more community, creating more love. Um, in my life with other people, and just in general. uh I plan on taking off with my businesses, my spiritual life coaching, and then also some other business ideas that I have going. So this year, really, the main theme for this year, I know, is going to be about cultivating love, fulfillment, family, um and healing, really. Any kind of healing that needs to take place in my life or anybody else's life, I'm there for it. So
Amazing. And do you have any bits of song that you could sing for us now? Do you have anything ready?
um let's see. Hmm. I have one song that it's kind of like a rap song. Um, let's see. I guess I could sing this song, but I'm on the spot though. I usually like to sing and then put my little spin on it, but basically this song is um it's relative to what we were talking about just a little bit. Um, but I wanted it to come out during the summer because it'll flow really good. But all right, I'm gonna sing a little bit and then I'm gonna stop. So it'll just be a little teaser. Okay, let me drink my water. Okay. I feel really good when I breathe. Sunlight fills up my entire being. Grandfather, sun, come over the horizon. Moon time is done, now this time we have some fun. Through the clouds, I can see you peeking. I stare you down, and my oars aligning with the priority that is now my body. My spirit sings, thank you for these blessings. Night and day, catch me smiling at play. Make the space so new love come my way. Exercise as I catch these sun rays. Light me up like some sweet creme brulee. I'm on a roll, yes, I have just begun. Life path is 7, but right now I'm on 1. Synthesize as I flow through these rhymes. Music hit the soul and elevate the mind. And life is so divine in and out this realm of time. Joy is a tonic through this message I define. The heat of our spirit, guardian of our shrine. High, happiness wash over me. Fuel my life, force of fire, creativity. Unity above the blind, make sure you can see. We mark this earth as our territory. Beam brighter than you've ever seen me gleam. Bring into fruition all that I have ever dreamed. A nightmare for some who don't cater to the queen. Hair bonnet to the scalp, yeah, that's supreme. Locked to the core from the source I receive. Strike lightning, thunder roll when I preach. Not an 80s baby, call me Generation Z. Indigo, rainbow, crystal coming to the scene.
Hey.
All right, that's enough.
Hey. You're Generation Z, are you?
Yep,
Well,
I'm Generation
when's your
Zer.
birthday?
It's November 17th,
Oh, okay.
95. So I'm like a cusp.
Oh, right, okay.
Gen Z, like right there. Like I just made it to Gen Z.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. You're doing so well and you're out there leading the young people, which is amazing work that you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, we're definitely going to look forward to putting this together and listening to all of the information again when we're editing it.
Yeah. Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you for inviting me. I feel very blessed and honored to be here with you talking about this. And yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you. You're amazing.
You're amazing. It's like
I scrolled past your Instagram a little bit too, and I was like, oh, she's fun.
honestly, it's so nice to actually talk to someone who's like been through, you know, you're like slightly ahead of the journey from where sort of I am in terms of this whole rabbit hole. So it's nice to have someone to sort of give you a bit of guidance as to where to sort of look next. It's all part of the universal alignment, I guess.
Yeah, and have people, one of the biggest things is I want people to feel safe and loved and like because there can be a lot of fear around the knowledge that people bring, around the matrix. It can be a lot of scary stuff that you're just like, "Ooh, do I want to learn more?" This is kind of disturbing.
Mm,
But I want people to know that even though there are dark things about every all of this, there is a beautiful light and love and purity that exists, that I think more attention needs to be brought to that. So I want people to feel like they can go on this journey and it's safe. It's okay. Like it's it's nothing but love and light at the end of the tunnel.
that's it. That is it. That is definitely the message I needed to hear personally. So thank you for that. If you would like to know more, you can follow Esaia Mystic on Instagram, and she has a plethora of theories and information. So if you are on this journey and you don't know where to look, this is a great starting point. This is Mama C on Firestar TV. Love to the world. Peace out.